Hey guys, Zack here, and this is my review of Kaitou Joker. Okay, so this episode is actually interesting in that it showcases Professor Clover enacting the next stage of his plan, which is kind of cool. Professor Clover is kind of interesting as an antagonist, and I do always like whatever it is he's scheming up. But this episode showcases Professor Clover enacting the next part of his scheme, and what he does is something that actually gets revealed a bit later. But in case the episode actually opens up with Professor Clover declaring the next phase of his plan, which is that now that he has one of the three magic orbs, that he only needs 2 left, and asks Stout if she has all the things in place for their next preparation, and while they're inside his giant submarine, and she declares that they are, and that she has a trap prepared especially for Joker. At which point she tells he tells Shadow, and just says Shadow's name, but Shadow immediately gets what he's supposed to do, and declares that he knows what he's doing for his part, and that he will defeat Joker by his own hands if he has to. But in case it then cuts back to Silverheart's house, where Queen and Roko are currently visiting with him. And case in point, and Queen actually decides that she wants to help by doing a bit of spring cleaning, which we quickly find out she's not the best at. She almost breaks a vase, which makes Roko decide that she shouldn't be trusted around basically anything. And she does it again twice. But at which point Roko just decides that he's going to do all the spring cleaning himself, and tells her to go lay down or something. Just stay away from anything valuable or breakable. And basically, that's just that he just tells her that to not clean and just go do or whatever. And though reluctant, pointing out that she wants to help, she does eventually comply, and then just goes to do whatever. In any case, Roko then proceeds to actually start cleaning, actually noticing an interesting little necklace with a star in it that he notes is kind of interesting as a little bauble, and notes that it's very pretty. But then goes back to dusting all of the other treasures, and in the process, he actually winds up seeing a cat, which shows up and starts kind of harassing him, and he has no idea how it got in there. He just knows that he needs to get rid of it. So he starts chasing it around with the broom, but eventually he winds up knocking Queen's sword off the balcony and into the water below, which causes him to freak out and panic, since he knows that Queen very much loved her sword, and if he doesn't get a replacement, he's going to be screwed. So with that, he then decides to just kind of leave and go find a replacement, while Queen eventually goes looking for him on the balcony, and pointing out that she's wondering how the cleaning is going. But when she can't find him, she becomes a little confused. At which point Joker shows up at the house, and it's heavily implied that it's Shadow Joker in disguise. But Shadow Joker as Joker tells her that he needs to see her for something, and tells her to come with him, which she does, not realizing that's Shadow Joker. But in any case, that's more or less the last we see of her for the rest of the episode. But meanwhile, the real Joker and Hachi are actually driving to the titular Moonlight Castle, which as we find out, and we actually find out the legend of Moonlight Castle, is that Moonlight Castle is apparently this haunted, spooky old castle that apparently no one has actually seen lived to tell the tale about. But it apparently just comes and goes, and it's kind of like this mystical, weird, magical castle. But in any case, they then proceed to go and he points out that it only shows up on the night of the full moon, points out that it's likely around where they are somewhere after they get out of the car. But and they point out that they have and Joker and Hachi even points out that Joker clearly has no idea what he's doing. But it's at this point where they hear a rustling noise, at which point Hachi actually cleans the Joker for protection, and it's then revealed that it's actually Roko, who just kind of showed up. And they eventually realize that they're actually there for the same thing, and that Roko is actually there for the King's sacred sword, which Joker conveniently is also after. Although Joker actually does wind up pressing Roko for an answer, and Roko points out that obviously Roko isn't giving a straight answer, because obviously he broke Queen's sword and needs to get a replacement, but he doesn't tell Joker that right away. He just kind of hides his true motives for why he's there, and also doesn't point out that Queen isn't with him because she's not supposed to know. in case, it's at this point where Joker realizes Hachi is clinging to him and then shakes him off, and which point Hachi points out that Joker seems very fearless and brave, and sure enough, Joker even reiterates that sentiment, pointing out that you can't be a proper phantom thief if you're scared of ghosts, which Hachi just once again comments on how brave Joker really is. At which point we see a strange little man named Butler, who I should mention looks kind of like a cat, but in any case, Butler, and that is indeed his name. He shows up and kind of invites Joker, Hachi, and Roko in. Even pointing out that he is the butler of the castle of Moonlight Castle. And sure enough, the fog then clears to reveal where Moonlight Castle is. And Joker points out that it just kind of materialized out of nowhere. And he points out that his master is actually waiting for them and proceeds to escort them. And at which point we discover that the foyer of the castle is completely filled with cats. And Hachi is immediately head over heels with the cats, pointing out that they're very cute, and even offers it one of his rations of a dried sardine. But what we find out is that Joker is apparently afraid of cats and winds up clinging to the pillar and to one of the pillars to try and get away from them. And when Hachi asks him what's wrong, he merely points out that there's nothing. But Hachi, not fully believing him, then holds up a cat and holds it up to Joker, and Joker proceeds to panic and actually jumps from the pillar to a suit of armor, and then proceed. At which point Roko and Hachi actually wind up kind of having a bit of a laugh at the fact that Joker is actually afraid of cats, and Joker points out that it's a very rational fear. And what we find out is that that fear of cats actually stems from the fact that Doubt actually took on her cat form and chased him through the vents as a child. So yeah, he's afraid. He does have his reasons to be afraid of cats. It's still a very silly fear, but yeah, he's afraid of cats because Doubt chased him as a child. So yeah, because of that reason, he's afraid of cats. But in any case, the cats then proceed to start cuddling up to Hachi, and Hachi is very happy to be petting them, but then they kind of just start climbing all over him, and Joker winds up panicking because he thinks that Hachi is about to get eaten by cats, and at which point Butler lets out a loud hiss, which chases all the cats off, and Hachi is nowhere to be found. Which understandably causes Joker to panic, and he starts to think that Hachi actually did get eaten. But then it's at this point where Butler's master is actually revealed, and it's revealed that Butler's master is actually Doubt. So yeah, Doubt shows up in her cat form and proceeds to kind of start mocking the whole situation regarding it, which causes Joker to panic because he didn't realize Doubt could talk as a cat, but. She merely invites him in and also points out that it's been some time since she's seen Roko. And Roko they just address each other by number because that's the only name they know. But she kind of addresses Roko, pointing out that it's been a long time. But she points out that he had such a promising future and is a bit surprised that he became such a common burglar. But he merely corrects her, pointing out that he's a phantom thief and demands to know where Hachi is. But she doesn't. She tells them that that all they have to do is keep going deeper into the castle, and they'll eventually find him. But points out that time's a waste, and proceeds to just kind of disappear, laughing the whole while. And with that, Joker and Roko kind of go looking for Hachi with Roko actually hollering Hachi's name, while Joker just kind of clings to Roko for protection, pointing out that if they're going to look, they might as well not be so noisy. But it's at this point where Roko immediately points out that he has a bit of a history with Doubt, and points out that he's a little surprised to see her here of all places. At which point they clear up that Doubt and Number 12 are actually the same person. And sure enough, they then proceed to exchange stories about how they know Doubt. Roko obviously broke Roko out of prison, or rather broke him out of the pound where he was being held. In the process of trying to steal the ability of evolution time, which Joker notes is interesting, and even points out that when he first met Doubt, they tried to steal the Time Goddess statue from his house, and starts putting two and two together about what it is Professor Clover might actually be working on. But then his train of thought is completely interrupted when a cat shows up and meows at him, so he runs off deeper into the castle. At which point it's revealed what actually happened to Hachi. He's been tied up and gagged and left in a cage. And Dao then proceeds to have a conversation with Butler, pointing out that if he's made all the necessary preparations, and sure enough he did, and sure enough he has, and points out that that one Joker that his cats are currently leading Joker deeper into the castle where they're based, and points out that eventually they will make it to the room where they are, and at which point the real games will begin. At which point Joker winds up barging in, actually slamming the door in Butler's face, which he doesn't take too kindly to, and even rather rudely points out that they're here. At which point Doubt winds up slipping behind the throne that's in the room and shakes on her human form and sits back down. At which point she reveals that now that they're there, they can actually continue the game. And sure enough, Joker then proceeds to declare that he's going to steal the king's sacred sword, and also points out that while he's at it, probably Hachi, which Hachi objects to through his gag, and even kind of gets upset with Joker a little bit, but Doubt merely points out that to kind of try it if he can, and proceeds to reveal what the true purpose of the room actually is. And after pressing a couple of buttons on the armrest of the chair, reveals that the entire thing is a giant death gauntlet. Basically, the floor just opens up, and there's just lava everywhere. And what they find out is that the rules of the game are pretty simple. They just have to jump from pillar to pillar to get to the end, but points out that only one of the pillars is the correct one. And points out that if they choose incorrectly, the pillar will break and they will fall into lava. In which Butler demonstrates by actually throwing a can at one of them, which causes it to break. And they quickly realize that they have no way of telling, but Joker then points out that since it doesn't seem like there's any rule against it, he decides to pull out his gum pack and blows a inflation gum, uses balloon gum to try and fly over the trap, but Doubt just responds to that by shooting it, which almost causes him to fall in and drop his gum packs, and Roko winds up saving him. At which point she then reveals that all they have to do is make it to the end, and points out that they are not allowed to cheat. But also points out that they don't have much time to do so, and reveals the second part of her trap, which is that she's slowly going to lower Hachi into the lava below. So they only have a limited amount of time to get to the end before Hachi is dunked into the lava and dies. But in any case, Roko then points out that something stinks, and Joker points out that it does seem a little bit fishy. But then Roko corrects him, pointing out that something literally stinks. And eventually gets a whiff of something, and eventually discovers that there's actually one of Hachi's sardines placed on one of the pillars. And Joker winds up pointing out that this is actually that Hachi most likely has left it there for them to actually get across and know where he's been. And Doubt actually makes a very big thing of actually scolding Butler for it, pointing out that was a very clumsy mistake, and Butler kind of apologizes for it, but what we find is that they're lying through their teeth, and what we find out is that Hachi actually wasn't the one who put the sardines there, and it's heavily implied to be Butler. But yeah, they then proceed to just kind of jump from pillar to pillar, oblivious to Hachi just kind of trying to scream at them, pointing out that they're falling directly into their trap. But and they do eventually wind up getting to the last pillar, and eventually Joker stops and tells Roko to do the same. And it's at this point where he discovers that where he points out that it was too easy. He points out that they made it through all of these traps, and it was a little too effortless, and points out that the final pillar is likely a fake. Which Hachi winds up letting a sigh of relief over, pointing out that Joker finally got his message, and Doubt winds up getting annoyed, pointing out that there's no way he could have figured that out, but Joker merely remarks in his head that his body felt like it wouldn't move, so he knew from the fact that he was afraid of what would happen that clearly the pillar was a fake. But in any case, they then deduce that one of the two pillars is likely the real one. And Doubt even points that out as well, pointing out that if they don't hurry, Hachi will actually die, and points out that they'll have to jump to one of the pillars, and even reiterates the legend of the trial, which is that only one who shows unhidden courage will be able to actually survive. But But in any case, they then proceed to point out that they need to figure out which pillar it is, and eventually Roko just suggests that they each jump on one. With Joker pointing out that that's actually madness and that there's a very good chance that one of them will die in the process. But Roko seems to point out that it's the only way, and they then prepare to get ready to jump. But at which point Jump kind of reveals in her head that even if they pick one or the other, it doesn't matter since they're both going to fall in, and that both of them, the pillars that they see, are actually fake. Joker then starts to think things through a little bit, pointing out that it feels like that this would be a little too dangerous, and looks up at Hachi to try and figure out what's going on, and eventually notices something on the ceiling, and then decides to make his choice and take a leap of faith into the lava, seemingly, except no. He lines up landing on a pillar, bizarrely enough, and Doubt and Butler even point out how this is possible. But it's at this point where Joker tells him to take a closer look, and they reveal that there's actually a fourth pillar made of glass that Joker is standing on, which winds up surprising them quite a bit. But he then points out that he did kind of figure out the legend and the rule of the trial, and eventually after seeing strange marks on the ceiling, which he then gestures to, pointing out that obviously the lava kind of left scorch marks, left shadows where the other pillars are, but points out that one of the pillars there's 4 marks on the ceiling, but only 3 pillars. He then deduces that there's likely one that they're not seeing, and that's how he found the glass pillar. And with that, he then proceeds to reach the end, and he and Roko actually wind up freeing Hachi, with Hachi actually being very happy and grateful for the fact that they saved him. It's at this point where Doubt and Butler point out that they seem to have lost the death game. But once Joker actually winds up retrieving the sword from its pedestal, the entire castle winds up crumbling, and they then remark that they've completed their objective and then proceed to leave through the back of the throne room. At which point Joker, Hachi, and Roko all follow suit and run through the crumbling castle. But it quickly becomes apparent that they're not going to be able to make it through any of the hallways because some of them are crumbling and not have a clear path through. So Roko just uses his sonic scream to make a path for them, and they eventually escape the castle that way. At which point they get a safe distance away from the castle, and it's revealed that the castle, it's not entirely explained what happens. The characters just kind of dialed it up to something Doubt did, but what they remark is that the castle seems to have aged 100 years inexplicably, and so has the sword. So now the king's sacred sword is now completely useless and not valuable in the slightest. So yeah, they then point out that's kind of a bummer, and Roko even points out that that's a little bit depressing as well, because he was very dead set on stealing that sword. But it's at this point where Joker and Hachi actually wind up asking him why he wanted the sword so bad, and he doesn't reiterate a thing, but Joker does eventually figure out what's going on, and threatens to call Queen since he seems to have figured out why Roko was there to actually steal the sword for, and sure enough, Roko eventually caves and tells him that he broke Queen's sword and dropped it into the ocean. And which they wind up being which Hachi and Joker wind up being very shocked by. But then we find out from an information corner from Silverheart that no, that's not what happened at all. So it turns out, Silverheart's the one that broke the sword. So what happened was he was admiring his new cape in the mirror. He accidentally knocked over Queen's sword, stepped on the hilt, broke it, and made an image gum replica of it until he can go out and replace it. Which with Roko being completely oblivious to the whole thing. So, at the end of his information corner, he declares that he's going to fix the story even if it kills him, and then he runs off screen and then returns back to the episode. So, yeah, that was just kind of a little side thing that was going through the episode. He just kind of broke the sword and didn't tell anybody, and that's what caused Roko to be there in the first place. But in case Hachi then completely understands where Roko is coming from, and points out that all he has to do is come clean with Queen, and he's sure she'll completely understand. But Joker then decides to actually tease Roko a little bit, pointing out that that sword was very important to her, and he's not entirely sure if she'll forgive him. For good measure, decides to actually want to call Queen anyway and tell her what happened and tell her that she has something funny to tell her, but she points out that she's not in the mood and proceeds to point out the why, because as it turns out, in addition to Queen, Shadow Joker has actually wound up catching Spade and Darkeye, and has actually lured them to his secret lair and captured them. They managed to escape and found an exit in a cave, but Shadow Joker is slowly closing in on them and is planning to finish them off with his blood rain. It even points out that if she had his sword, she would have been able to finish him off and be more of a threat for him. Which Joker, realizing that they're in a very dangerous situation, considering that Queen currently doesn't have her sword. But in any case, Shadow Joker then shows up and starts firing his blood rain from his umbrella at them. And Spade actually tries to fight back against him, but winds up losing his stun gun in the process. So he's unable to fight back against Shadow Joker. And also in the process, Queen actually winds up dropping her phone, so it winds up just being laid on the ground and put on speaker, so that Joker can actually hear the whole thing. Obviously, they have no idea what exactly is going on, pointing out that there's no good reason why Shadow Joker would want them out of the way, but then they eventually conclude that what's going on, and eventually realize that Shadow Joker, in addition to doubt, was just trying to get them out of Silverheart's house so that Silverheart would be alone. And when Queen demands to know what they're going to do with her grandfather, Shadow Joker doesn't explain any further, and pointing out that she likely won't be able to get back in time anyway, and proceeds to try and shoot her with blood rain again, but Darkeye intervenes with his evil eye, which again, I should iterate, does nothing, but it does wind up distracting Shadow Joker long enough for the three of them to escape. Shadow points out that it's no matter and that they'll never get back to the house in time. At which point, Joker, Hachi, and Roko get into the Road Joker and proceed to drive back to his shack. But it's too late, and a giant airship actually winds up showing up and is about to. And we don't know what the guy's name is in this episode, but he's kind of a general-looking dude. But we aren't actually told his name in this episode. I'll picture him next time. But he then declares that now they're nearing their objective and tells them to get ready to open fire. And declares that Silverheart actually stole the sapphire star, the sapphire star that he actually stole from them 40 years ago, and he wants it back. And sure enough, as Shadow Joker predicted, none of the two parties are able to actually get back to Silverheart's house before the house is actually blown up. So yeah, the house just kind of gets leveled to the ground, and that's where the episode ends. It's unclear if Silverheart actually made it out okay. It's unclear what happened to his house. It's just shown that his house blew up, and we have no idea what happened to him. So yeah, this episode is interesting in that it is a Disney two-parter, but I'm actually curious about what the second part is, because obviously there's that general dude. Obviously he's got something of importance, but we haven't been told what. But clearly their overall objective was to just kind of get Shadow Joker out of the house, was to just kind of get everybody else out of the house so they could attack Silverheart and get the Sapphire Star back. But what seems to be implicated here is that it's in some way tied to the magical orbs that Professor Clover is collecting. And we find out that apparently the general is eventually going to try and release something. It's not unclear what he's releasing, but he's releasing something using the thing. So clearly there's some sort of creature or mystical monster or whatever the hell, like Medusa before it, that is going to have the second magic orb that Professor Clover is going to need to continue his plan. So yeah, I think Professor Clover engineered that whole thing so that he could get the orb. He probably tipped the dude off to the fact that to where Silverheart's house was, and that he still had the Sapphire Star that he had. But I'm interested to see how that's going to play out, because obviously the Phantom Thieves are going to save the day and stop him in the short term. But I get the feeling it's not going to be that simple, and he's eventually going to get the second magic orb that he needs to continue his plans. But in any case, that's going to do it for my review of Kaitou Joker. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. And also be sure to check out my Patreon if you want to help support me. It's only a couple bucks a month. It does really help me out. And you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that are my way of saying thanks. So overall, just go check that out. Link is down in the description and also on the end screen. And speaking of the end screen, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen as well. But the top video is the most recent video, whereas the bottom video is recommended based on what you've already seen. So if you want to try something new or see more of what you like, then be sure to check both of those videos out. And also be sure to check out my Twitch as well. We are continuing to stream Pokemon Legends Arceus throughout the coming couple of weeks. So if you want to see that, by all means, link is down in the description. Go check that out. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!